I am so excited to share with you this interview that I did with my pal, Sheri Salata, who was the executive producer for the Oprah Winfrey Show. She worked for Oprah and OWN Network for over 20 years. And she's written this amazing book called The Beautiful No, which I am loving so much. It just came out in paperback. Um, and other tales of trial, transcendence, and transformation. She is so inspiring. I think you are going to love this. I'll tell you a little bit about her. At 56 years old, Sheri realized she had manifested the career of her dreams as the executive producer of The Oprah Show, but not the life of her dreams. So, in this book itself, she chronicles, it's really a memoir, the book about her life, and all of the experiences she had, and the beautiful no that she got to another job that actually left her open to be able to do the Oprah Winfrey Show. So if you don't know her work, you really are going to want to know her work. She is a transformational expert, and she actually has something coming out. It's called The Course, and it's her signature 12-week transformational experience. And it is starting a new group on June 6th. So if you're interested in that, go to sherisalata.com/the course. I really hope that you enjoy this interview with Sheri Salata. I'm super excited to welcome my friend Sheri Salata to the show. Welcome, Sheri.
Hi, Terry. Thanks for having me on. Hi,
As you wrote,
everybody. Woo.
hold on, as you wrote in your book,
Uh,
my new fave, The Beautiful No, and
mm,
other tales of trial, transcendence, and transformation, you wrote to our destined friendship. And
yes,
it's so funny because we knew each other from afar, but we kind of were destined to be friends through the
yes,
Debbie Phillips of it all and through the Mark Groves of it all and all these different
right.
connections that were bringing us together. So I'm super psyched to dive in. I've been just devouring the book, and it actually just came out in paperback. So why don't we start by just telling us a little bit about what inspired the name of the book?
Oh, the beautiful no. Um, it is the title story of the book. The book, there are a collection of gems and tales and stories, and that particular story, the beautiful no, is has become a spiritual foundation for me. And it is the story about how I, at 35 years old, after having so many crazy jobs, I finally got a fairly entry level position at the Oprah Show. 35, not 21, 35. And it really is about understanding that um, it's a worthy journey to look back at your big disappointments and see, had you have gotten what you thought you wanted, how would your life have been different? And I could see that some of my biggest disappointments, things I really really wanted, including some jobs that I really really wanted that I didn't get, left me available for the opportunity that I was co-creating with the universe,
So what
unbeknownst to
job
me.
so there was a job prior to
Yeah,
the so tell
yeah.
us a little bit about that
Well,
experience.
I was a freelance producer, a freelance agency producer producing television commercials, which was very different than producing a television show. And actually the skill sets are similar, but everybody thought it was so different. And I was up for a big senior job at a big agency in Chicago. And I went in to the interview and I needed it. I had been frittering away my time on freelance, which meant that I had no home, I belonged to nobody, and it was a constant day in and day out dialing for dollars, to get jobs, like pick up a little work here, pick up 3 weeks of work here. And I was in bad shape. I needed money. I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to pay my rent, and it was so disappointing because I wasn't a kid. I wasn't a kid. I had already, started over, moved back from Texas to live with my parents in Chicago. at 27. So I was feeling like, oh God, what a failure I am. I just can't get this job thing right, even though I'm supposed to be very talented. I can't seem to figure this out. And so this big time interview I went to with this big time executive producer, it went so well. He all but hired me in the room. I'm going to pay you a ton of money. I'm going to put you on the biggest accounts. You're exactly what I need. I mean, I was doing the happy dance. I was doing the happy dance at my neighborhood watering hole that night with my friends, where we were just like, celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. Oh, not too fast. But we did anyway. And sure enough, a week later, I don't hear from him. And a week later, I get the devastating form letter from their HR department. We're not hiring at this time. Thanks for coming in.
Wow.
And I was about as low as I'd ever been, because I just, like I said, I couldn't seem to figure this out. And I remember, I mean, it was very dramatic, I'm sure, on my couch in front of a soap opera with a bag of chips and dirty hair, opening my hands and just being like, I don't know what to do. I can't, I don't know what to do. I don't think I don't have any more schemes or strategies. There's no more places to move. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to ever solve this. And within a very short time, and just days, and there was a message left on my answering machine. Oh, this is so-and-so from the Oprah Winfrey Show. We found your reel and resume in a closet that we were cleaning out. Would you come in and freelance? Now, that was one of the Hail Marys I had thrown years before. Hey, maybe I'm supposed to be at that Oprah show, and they shut me down like that. So I'm listening to this message, and for me, it was like you told me I just won $1 billion in the lottery. Like, what are the chances of that? I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing. And obviously, I ended up working in Oprah's companies for 20 years. So it was that moment, that thing, that divine, everything comes together, all cooperative components come together. It was the moment that I had been setting up. And it was, I'd like to tell you, Terri, that I was wise enough to know that at that moment, but it was a few years later I realized, had I got that job, that big senior job, would I have had the courage to leave it, to go chase a dream? No way.
Right.
And there is the beautiful no. It was the most beautiful no I had ever gotten.
What I really love, I love so much about the book. The stories are amazing. Your truth is amazing. Your vulnerability is amazing, but it's incredibly inspiring because there's this shift when you look at, just like you just shared, a disappointment that at the time is just so painful and devastating and humiliating and embarrassing or whatever. We all have had them. In this shifting and having faith that something better will come along, that perhaps the universe has a better plan for you than you could ever plan for yourself, because the way that everything came together for you with the Oprah show, and of course, I mean, you went from freelancing to, I mean, you worked there were other producers, I imagine, and then I know you were the sole producer in the end of your time there, correct?
I was the executive producer
Yes.
for the last
Sorry.
5 years of the show. Yeah. Mhm.
Wow. So what can I ask you, what was that like? That moment of, because that's really like ascending. Like that's like, wow, so much
Oh,
responsibility. It's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. It is a crazy thing. Any executive producer before that I would be like, critique or criticize, I take it all back, because it's a monster of a job. I never saw that coming, honestly. I did not see that coming. I had after about 8 years in the promo department where I produced the commercials for the show, I moved into the show. They moved me in. I did the book club. I did script writing. generous, generous people were teaching me and showing me the ropes and training me. And I had Oprah and I had a lovely relationship and a really good connection. And when she asked me to take over in that job, it was a total shock, a big mistake, I thought. And it was a 5 year, like for 5 years, flying a big plane. There were a lot of balls in the air. It was a
All the
lot. It
time.
was
Yeah.
everything. It was a joy. It was agony. It was the agony and the ecstasy, both of it.
Part of what the book is about, and part of what the beginning of the book, I'm just going to read a little bit of the description. What happens when you realize you've had the career of your dreams, but you don't have the life of your dreams? This was the stark reality facing Sheri Salata when she left her 20-year stint at the Oprah Winfrey Show, Harper Studios, and OWN Networks. She had dedicated decades to her dream job and loved almost every minute of it, but had left the rest of her life gathering dust on the shelf.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
So tell me about
Well,
this transition.
yeah. I mean, well, here, if for people listening, and often when I'm speaking with younger women, they're like, "Oh, I can't have it all," and I'm like, "Yes, yes. Let me be a cautionary tale. If you're a little older in life, I'm your rallying cry. If you're just starting out or early on in your career, I'm your cautionary tale, which is yes, you can, and I could have too. The truth is, when the more responsibility you take on, the bigger your job, the better you better get at stress management, self-care. You better have a coach, you better have a therapist, you better have all the things that you need to surround yourself with to be successful when there's that kind of pressure. That kind of pressure, it's like that kind of joy, that kind of stress. Everything's big. Everything's big in a career like that. So, and I see younger women being much smarter than I was about that. My therapist was cigarettes and lattes. You know what I'm saying? Like I was like, I had no time for that. I had no time for that. So I could have done that very differently and had a very different overall experience.
Right. So now you're helping us, right? So
Yeah.
part of what I'm getting out of this book, and it is a rallying cry for me personally. I feel so inspired by the expansion that I'm feeling in reading the possibilities and the how to consciously create what you want. And so you've brought it down to you have this something that's called the course. So this is your
Yeah.
12-week
Yeah.
transformational experience. And I know that, and I'm so excited, I totally am doing it. June 6th is when the next one starts.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this, because you really have had this extraordinary life, Sheri. You're incredibly humble, and you I'm not saying you downplay, but I mean, you have met and managed to a degree every massive talent that has existed in the past. I mean, there will never be anything like the Oprah Show again. I mean, think about
Never.
what was
Yeah.
happening. It was the burgeoning, the moment when we were all getting
Yeah.
into self-help in a different way. And she was normalizing that experience and being very vulnerable herself. And
Yeah.
everyone in the world has been on that friggin' show. So you have
Yeah.
all of this experience that I know that wisdom, and I can tell from what's in the book, you were impacted, personally impacted
Right. For
by this,
sure.
folks. So tell us about the course, because we all need this. It's like to me, it seems like a GPS to
Right.
transformation, to our own transformation that's very unique to us. So tell us about the course. I'm dying to know.
Well, I had this epiphany, honestly, because you're right. I had a front row seat. So when I was right at the front row seat taking notes, and I'm an A student, why wasn't I able to improve? Why wasn't I able to take the tips and make it happen? And it wasn't till after I was out of the fray and I had a moment to think about it And that was this, that in the end, what people are calling for us, all of you experts, because I'm going to call you that. I don't call myself that. You are calling us back to ourselves. Your real job, Terri, is to make yourself not necessary. You know, I say that to my beloved Mark Groves all the time, create the love. Your job is to make yourself unnecessary, because that's what a real, you know, guru, expert does. It's you're offering, here's some thinking, here's a perspective, here's some thoughts, and now you must go within and use your knowing to put together your own process, plan, your own rules for a happy life. So I spent quite a bit of time doing that for myself, and you know, fits and starts and stumbles, and you know, really starting to understand how I could eat from the buffet of the wisdom of our time, and yet decide for myself what worked for me. So that's so I created the course because it's the conversation, it's the experience I want to have. I want to just dive in and keep talking about and discovering, what am I unpacking here in this life? How am I elevating myself? How am I able to look at where I am right now and know, not just in my head, but know every single day I have left is mine to create. And what am I doing? What are my esteemable practices? What are my rituals and ceremonies? How am I bringing reverence and sacredness and evolution? How am I managing my own evolution as a human being in this Sheri suit? I'm finding that to be the most joyous, crazy, fulfilling ride I've ever taken in my life. And so the 12 weeks, I just bring people together. Our last cohort, we had people from all over the world, and we just go after it. You know, we excavate, we build, we manifest, and we integrate. And it really is through vulnerability. And it, you know, that's what I love about vulnerability. It's like you instantly get to the heart of things. And especially, Terri, when, you know, I kind of use my book as a bit of a textbook, in that I want your vulnerability to meet mine. And if we do that, woo, the magic's going to happen.
There's so much that you talk about in the book, and I know that you're also sharing this within the course. But one thing that I love so much, that I think is so profound and that a lot of people don't do, is the power of our words
Yeah,
shaping our experiences.
yeah, yes. Words, the building blocks. And goodness, every master has tried to tell us this, that first there was the word, you know, the words, they're little energy bubbles. And we're literally using those words to sing ourselves to greatness or defame ourselves to sorrow and depression. We're literally using the energy that comes along, that bubbles around those words, to cast our fate, to cast our fate. And if, you know, when I begin to take that seriously, my life changes dramatically. I am on the path of transformation. I'm breathing it like air. And when I don't take that seriously, and I let whatever's going on in my head just bibbity bobbity boo, those old tapes, those old neural pathways, you know, then I get what I get. And it ain't pretty,
Yep.
you know, it ain't
There's
pretty.
something about the mindfulness, though, and the power of being with a group of people and spending this time with, it's like
Yeah.
our co-conspirators
Yes.
in our own personal transformation. But I've really, with my own courses as well, I've recognized the power of the collective,
Yeah.
because people love to think, like, people love to look at your life and go, amazing. She just like applied to the Oprah show, or Oprah plucked her off a bus, or I don't know what people think
Right.
happened in your life or when they think it happened. But when you read the story, when you actually get into the book and realize how much life you lived prior to, before this experience happened. So this
Right.
happened when you were 35.
Yes.
It's like there's no,
Listen, I know a lot of people would have just hung it up well before that, well before that. And that's why it's like the never give up story is my story.
oh yeah, the never give up story, but also the remain curious story is also your story. You're curious about yourself, you're curious about the world, and your desire to evolve and to show us how. Like you said, listen, you're saying you don't call yourself an expert, but it's kind of like Chris Carr, a mutual friend of ours who
Oh,
says
love her.
she's not an expert, right? I'm like, but you are. You are literally the most schooled patient who ever lived.
I agree with you about her. Chris Carr, gosh darn it. If she's not an expert, I don't know who is.
I know, but especially in the beginning, she was always more fearful of stepping into that power. And yet I was like, listen, you are literally the most well informed. And what you teach people to do is the same thing. And so this is sort of the same, Cher, where it's like we're all on this journey. And yet you have had so many life experiences that people can identify with, and you have been transcending, you have been doing this, and you're willing to do the work, but you're also willing to face the stuff that wasn't working, the stuff that you had neglected over that time, because you're like, but now I want the life. Like
Yeah.
the career is great, I would now like to have the life. So this course itself, who would you say it's for?
Listen, here's where I see it really landing. Really, if you are in the middle of life and you feel stuck about what you want to do for a living, and you feel like, gosh, I never really made the big dream come true. If you feel like life feels very stale, that you're in a rut, if you feel like you don't know how to, get that, to get just to that next level where you start feeling hopeful enough to stir the dream pot and start mixing it up and trying new things and connecting with other people who will have this conversation with you. I mean, that is the magic of this digital age. You're not going to hear me, poo-pooing technology, because we're in charge of how it works in our lives. This is amazing that you and I can have this conversation, and thousands of people can listen to it,
Yeah.
and take in what lands for them and what serves them. This is a time where you don't have to live next door to your soulmates, to your soul friends, to the people who are going to keep holding up the mirror, keep cheering you on, keep up leveling their own lives. They can be in another country. I love that.
Me too. So I just want to, you guys, obviously, everyone listening, if you're watching, all the information will be in the show notes. But to join the course, to join us, go to sherisalata.com/the course. And also you can buy the book everywhere that books are sold, because
Yay.
it's everywhere. I wanted to ask you, because I'm obsessed with boundaries, obviously, because that's my trip right now. I have
Yes.
two questions that I ask every guest about boundaries. So I'm going to ask you them.
Okay.
Personally, what has been your most challenging boundary struggle? And how did you, if you have, overcome it?
Well, um, I definitely had, and I still make sure, I'm a slippery character. I don't know if I've totally overcome this, but I had a really funky relationship between achievement and worthiness. So when it came to pleasing a person whose respect would fill my worthiness cup, I had no boundaries. No boundaries at all.
Yep.
Whatever, whenever, however. Um, I think there's a little piece of that kind of comes with producing. So it was like, my infection grew, if we could put it that way.
Yeah.
So I honestly am just beginning to explore boundaries and codependency in my life. And which is why you are coming in my membership group to do a
Yes, I am.
masterclass, and which is why I'm deeply immersed in your book, because I here's what I suspect, having now spent lots and lots of super vulnerable time with all of these women, a few men, is that boundaries and codependency it's like the last big thing to heal, to alchemize, to really, really be able to manifest and create the lives of our dreams.
I That's amazing. I so agree with you in such a specific way that it's like the last holdout
Yeah.
where we can, when we're effective and competent and smart,
Yes.
we can do everything. We can work ourselves. Like my whole winning formula was like forward motion. I'll just work harder
Yeah.
than other folks. Like I will not stop, right? I will keep
Same.
going. But the deep dive that is required, the internal experience that's required to really master boundaries and codependency, that I couldn't work that away. I couldn't work hard enough because it was a different muscle. That was a different skill set. It was a different part of my internal experience that I needed to really excavate, expose, unpack, and deal with in order to master that. And it is a discipline. Like there is no doubt.
Oh yeah. And Terri, the thing that I think is really makes this puts a sense of urgency on this and makes it a little bit more complex is that you've already created a ton of relationships founded with problems, and years long relationships that are completely enmeshed in your issues in these
Yeah.
two groups. So you're living a life, you're going to have to unpeel, you're going to have to let go, you're going to have to get clear, you're going to have to confront it. And and I think there's just got to be a moment when you say, I'm not going to keep doing this to the end of my days. I'm not going to keep denying myself my own sovereignty and my own agency
Yep.
and my own willingness to demonstrate a real true love for myself.
Oh, so beautiful. That's a perfect place to stop. I'm so psyched for the course this year. It's going to be so great.
Yes,
Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
yes,
You guys, all the info that you need will be in the show notes. If you want to join us in the course, you're going to sherisalata.com/the course. It's so easy. Thank you, my destined friend.
thanks,
I
Terri.
super
Yes,
appreciate you.
yes.